You're in the world of politics now. What prompted this?
I think like a lot of Kiwis, I'm sort of looking at the country that I love and getting nervous. It just feels we've kind of lost our way. And, I'm someone who is a doer. Like, I like building stuff. I like getting into the muck and fixing things as best I can.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you're attracting 100,000+ visitors each time it's held over the 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, so Field Days last year was over 110,000. We think this year will be a bumper year as well. We're nearly sold out of our sites. I think we're 98% today of sites sold. We're well ahead of any other measure in terms of sales. It shows that agribusiness is booming.
Hey everyone, welcome into another edition of the program. Thanks for joining us as always. And coming up for you today in a moment, we've got Daniel Ebb, who you might know from Dirt Road Comms and also from Open Farms. Now he's taking a bit of a break and he is going to be the deputy leader now of the Opportunity Party. So of course got the election coming up in November. We're going to find out what has prompted his move out of the sort of ag sector and into politics. Daniel Ebb on the show. Also Richard Lindroos as well, Chief Executive of the New Zealand Fieldays Society, National Society. Of course, they're the group that's responsible for the Field Days at Mystery Creek coming up in June. They've had some pretty good news, some government funding in relation to an upgrade of the entire water infrastructure. So we'll find out 70-odd days out from Field Days 2026, how all that is tracking, plus what the new water infrastructure upgrade entails. That's coming up for you on the program today. Don't forget, as always, to like, comment, and subscribe. Our next guest on the program, we've had him on a number of times in his capacity as, a number of things around the ag sector. He runs Dirt Road Communications, Daniel Ebb, but now he's changing tack, and we're going to be talking to him about his move into politics now. Dan, it's great to have you back on the show. We've spoken a lot, as I say, about various things, and of course the Open Farms, which was, I think at the end of the last conversation, you said, going to press pause on that for a little bit. We're going to do some thinking about it. I've got something else planned. Well, this is what you had planned. So here we are. You're in the world of politics now. What prompted this?
Oh, big question. I think like a lot of Kiwis, I'm sort of looking at the country that I love and getting nervous. It just feels we've kind of lost our way. And, I'm someone who is a doer. Like, I like building stuff. I like getting into the muck and fixing things as best I can. And it felt to me that, things like Open Farms are great. I've done some amazing work with some really, really cool people in the ag sector, like creating new stuff. But we always seem to hit a ceiling. And that ceiling is that the system settings are wrong. And like a really good example of that, I think, particularly from an ag sector, is approaches like we want to be this high value, sustainable, healthiest food producer in the world, right? Like that's our sort of North Star goal vision. Great, awesome vision, totally behind it. How do we do that when 25% of our kids are living in food insecurity and we're the third most obese country in the OECD? That's a really good example of you could be an innovative, food and fiber organization doing amazing stuff, but if your system settings as a nation aren't geared up for you to succeed, to develop your goal, you're always going to hit a ceiling. And so it sort of got to the point where I said, am I actually putting my, time and effort at the right intervention point to get to the place that I believe in, a healthy, sustainable, just and equitable New Zealand, or do I need to go a bit higher up the rung? And here I am.
And the Opportunity Party, why did they knock on your door? Did you knock on theirs? How did that come about?
It's a good question. It was kind of a mutual door knock. Someone put me in contact. I've been sort of circling around the orbit of the party for a few years. I've always liked what we stand for. And this year just felt right to to jump in sort of boots and all. And from a sort of values alignment perspective, it's I think, where I belong. It's all about system change. Like, we just don't do tweaks and tutus. We want to do big, gnarly, transformational stuff, particularly around like how we actually make political decisions and how our political system functions, what kind of economy we want to build. Like, do we actually just want to keep playing the 80s sort of economic playbook, kind of doing what we've always done, or do we want to build the next economy, build something new? So, like, these things are hard and gnarly and difficult, and you need like lots of co-design and lots of trust. It's going to be like a 20-year plan. But I'd rather get started doing that work than the just performative backwards and forwards like arguments we have over kind of nothing, to be fair, and in a lot of our political discourse these days. So if I was ever going to jump into politics, I'd jump into a party like the Opportunity Party, who wants to do the doing, the real hard mahi.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. So, and you've obviously been floating around them for a while, because I mean, I don't imagine they'd just, well, I don't know, maybe they would, but you've come in basically as deputy leader. So, yeah, well done.
Thanks, mate. It's exciting. It's awesome. I'm very, very privileged to have the role. Yeah, it's cool.
So the thing that always surprises me about people that want to go into politics is, why would you want to go into politics?
That was a very astute point.
I mean, you've outlined it to a point which I understand, sort of, I guess, philosophically, but practically speaking, your life just gets opened up to ridicule, really, doesn't it? And scrutiny.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, it was a pretty gnarly conversation with my wife about what this means for our family, and sort of had to take a real big deep breath and pause to reflect on that. But that's also a reason to go in, right? Because if that's the atmosphere that we're making really big, really important decisions in, then we're going to make really bad decisions, right? Like, until other people and a new generation of people who don't want politics to be like that step in, we're not going to get anywhere. And this might sort of sound a bit like kind of cliched and trite, but I got a little girl. She's 4 years old. And I think anyone that's had a kid will tell you that it reframes a lot in your life. And I can't help but think that when she's 20 and she says, Dad, what did you do? I'll say, well, I thought about going into politics, and I think I'm a decent guy, and I think I can help out, but I was scared and I didn't go in. My fear, I fear more the look on her face when I tell her that at 20 than I do going into politics and having, the naughty stuff I did at 20 publicly splayed over a newspaper. There's nothing that naughty anyway, I don't think.
Yeah. Everyone's got a past. That's the thing. That sort of stuff drives me crazy. Actually, people go through and, dig up that sort of stuff. It's like, well, yeah, but people can evolve and change. And, talk to most 18-year-old. I would hate my 18-year-old self or whatever to, that be what people judge me on. Dear God, that's horrendous.
Like most 18-year-olds, I was a complete idiot.
Yeah.
Get over it. Can we talk about superannuation now? The fiscal cliff, slightly more important than how many beers I drank at 18.
Precisely, couldn't agree more. So, what about the Opportunity Party is enticing for you? Where do you stand on? Yeah, no, let's go with that one. Yeah, what was it about that? You've been around the fringes, as you said, of the Opportunity Party, and yeah, it's always an interesting one, isn't it? Because what are they polling at the moment? About 2% or something along those lines? Yeah.
2.5 to 3 at the moment. We're on an upward trajectory across all the polls, which is good. We're still a minor party, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's such an interesting landscape with MMP. I mean, look, we've seen examples though, haven't we? I mean, ACT, for example, were dead in the water, a couple of election cycles ago, and so there is a chance, I suppose, isn't there? There's always a chance with MMP.
Well, there's always a chance with MMP. Also, we've got short memories, right? Like, at one stage, the National Party didn't exist. You can't tell me that in 50 years' time, the only 6 or 7 parties we're going to have are National, New Zealand First, like the current setup. There will be change. It's inevitable. And, I bet the previous iterations of the party said it every time, but this year is fundamentally different. At this stage, we are out fundraising Labour and the Greens. We've had a number of high-profile donations come in from, Kiwis who have a bit of coin, who are equally frustrated with the state of play. We're breaking membership records. We're basically where we were at the end of the last election cycle now, with 7 months to go. And I think that's a testament to the fact that there's this massive swath of Kiwis out there who are just frustrated and fed up and are open to voting and thinking differently about politics, because if we keep electing the same people who have put us in this position, we're going to stay in the position that we're in. It's really is that simple. Like, until you put new blood and new ideas into a system, you're going to get the same results. It's the same on a farm. Like, if I hadn't started banging the drum about like doing nature positive farming and changing our business model to my dad 10 years ago, we'd be doing the same thing that he was doing. Like, all due respect to my dad, I love the old geezer, but it wouldn't have changed. You have to have fresh ideas come into a system, otherwise it stagnates. And what we're seeing right now from a New Zealand perspective is stagnation and decline.
On the political spectrum, where does the Opportunity Party sit?
So I'm also the comms lead, and I've been working for 6 months trying to figure out like the one label that explains this. It's really hard, because I generally think we're trying to create something a little bit new, right? So we call ourselves, the sort of holding label at the moment is progressive centrists. So, like, on the left and right spectrum, we sort of sit around where National and Labour sit. We have some policies that would make a Green voter be like, whoa, that's extreme, that's liberal. But we have some policies that sit really nicely with an ACT voter. And so, and we do that not because we're plucking at random, but because we actually follow the evidence. Our core philosophy is follow the evidence, scrap ideology. Just look at what works. And shock horror, some ideas on the right are really good and some ideas on the left are really good. It's how you blend them and fix them. It's like, it's the same again with me and Dad on the farm. If we'd taken all of his conservative ideas and none of my progressive ideas, or all of my progressive ideas, it would have been a complete catastrophe. We ended up finding this middle ground that actually fits the farm, the family, and that kind of stuff. So we're centrists in the fact that we believe that compromise and like long-term stability is the pathway to progress. And so we generally do walk into something like a coalition agreement, coalition negotiating room, and saying the most important thing here is that we sign up to long-term plans, long-term intergenerational infrastructure plans, a plan to solve superannuation. It's less important that we get what we want. So I'm trying to figure out what the label for that kind of politics is, because it's not left or right. It's sort of more like intergenerational, and progress is the priority, not like ideological consistency. So we don't really fit, I mean, that sounds really trite to say, but we don't really fit on the traditional left-right spectrum. So if you've got any ideas as to how to succinctly say that all in one word, I am totally open, and I will buy you a box of like fancy craft beer.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it actually as you're talking about that, and I'm not quite sure. I mean, when you said sort of progressive centrist, that kind of fits, I suppose. I guess we'd have to know a bit more about where you sit on certain things. Let's look at, let's say, agriculture and the environment. There is such a gulf now. The current government is getting a lot of criticism for walking back a lot of environmental progress. There's, mining these sorts of things, drilling and that sort of stuff. Where do you guys sit on that? Let's say there's sort of the wider environment and ag sort of stuff. And I mean, yeah, obviously we could talk about this for days, but if you could kind of crystallize it a little bit as to so people get an idea of where you sit on these sorts of things.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so ag's a good example, right? So like the traditional sort of left-right argument when it comes to like politics and ag is, do you regulate more or do you regulate less? I will leave your listeners to assign a political party to which one is which one sits on each of those. We don't believe that that's the right frame. The question is not how do you regulate ag, it's how do you innovate ag. And so I think when you come from that perspective, automatically your options change, right? And so agricultural innovation is kind of like a through line that weaves its way through a lot of our policies. So the biggest one that's sort of front of mind when it comes to ag is that we have a commitment to lift our research and development spending from the current rate of 1.5%, which is one of the lowest in the OECD, to at least 2%. It's not even at the median yet. It's 2.4 is the median of OECD. And a big portion of that would be R&D in agriculture because it's fundamental to our economy, it's fundamental to our way of life, et cetera, et cetera. So like at some point you actually just have to spend more on pure science and get more people exploring more ideas. And what we've seen, particularly from this government, is an attempt to sort of chop up the science system and restructure it without actually doing ultimately the necessary thing, which is paying more scientists to do more science. Like there's kind of no way around that. So a big focus on innovation is right up there. The other piece is like we are totally into the free market. This is the one piece, the piece that sort of sits us more on the right side of the traditional spectrum. But we believe that you have to set up the market to get the outcomes that you want. So we are totally committed to rapidly rolling out like something like a biodiversity credit system where farmers who want to retire marginal land, who want to do predator trapping, who want to do biodiversity projects on farm, actually get paid public money to deliver public goods. Like that's a market. So let's build a market. Those are the outcomes that we want. We want to sequester carbon in our soil. Let's build a market to incentivize that. The ETS has a lot of faults, but it's a hell of a lot better than having nothing. So we're really committed to paying farmers for the outcomes that the public want to see. We have to build carrots into the system, not just regulate with sticks. So I think innovation, like pure science innovation and redesigning markets for nature positive farming outcomes is the two big approaches we take to ag.
Would you bring ag?
It's not left or right.
It's not left or right.
Does that fit on the left or does that fit on the right? I don't know.
Exactly, which is good. Yeah, you've got me on board so far. I'm following along nicely. So would you bring ag into the ETS?
That's a good question. I need to go back to policy team and get the exact answer. I think I know for a fact that we do want to accelerate other ways to pay farmers for carbon sequestration, so particularly in soil and wetland. So I think ultimately we want to bring farming in slowly, but only if you give farmers the tools to actually operate and participate in the system fairly. Because right now, it's really only like, well, you've kind of got no way out of producing a whole lot of emissions. But if we give farmers the tools to rebalance their sort of financial position within the ETS by ensuring that they can get paid for the carbon they do sequester properly on farm, then I think that's fair, because now you've created a market where you can effectively, sort of control and manage your emissions. And if you're a switched on, super smart farmer and you change your models and systems, you get paid for it. That's a good market.
Yeah, you can actually make money as opposed to just throwing it away. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. But what about the GE free bill, which is very contentious? That one. Geez, we've done a lot on that on this show, Dan, and it's It's a really interesting one. I was talking about it with someone the other day and was sort of saying, yeah, it's kind of dropped off a little bit. Matt Scarf, he just done a Kellogg research paper on it, and it was looking at the question of what would happen to our organic side of farming if we did lose our GE-free status. I think it wouldn't be great. Not a lot of farmers seem to want to go down that road. Certainly the ones I've spoken to. Where do you? It's a vexed one, that one, and it could set the course for a lot of stuff going forward. So yeah, where do you stand on that one?
Such a good question, and I don't think there is a black or white answer to this. The answer sits somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, but it's either going to be a law or it's not.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we support the move to somewhat looser controls on testing, but it has to be done safely and in a way that doesn't bias anyone's ability to do business the way they want to do. So effectively, yes, we want to back more genetic research, but do that in lab as much as possible before you go out into the real world. I'll be the first to admit that's such a gross politician's answer, but that kind of is the way, because there are some incredible medical benefits to genetic engineering. At some point, if climate gets really, really bad, we might need these additional tools of developing drought resistance and sort of pest resistance into some staple crops. I'm not that much of a total greenie that I would sort of hold us back from that option. But at the same time, we can't just go boots all in and go willy-nilly with something that is as fundamental as the genetic consistency of organisms in our environment. So yeah, there is a middle ground here, and we'd say go slowly.
Who would you align with? Let's hypothesize here, and you get a 5% threshold. It may not be this election; it might be one or two down the line. Who do you? Is there anyone that the Opportunity Party would go, nah, not interested? Could never on either side. Who do you line up with?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because I actually think that having a party that can genuinely and effectively work with both the left and the right bloc is exactly what New Zealand needs. Right now, the next election's on a knife edge. We're either going to go from a pretty conservative government all the way to Labour, Greens to Pāti Māori, super liberal government. That swing from left to right is just so detrimental. We can't keep doing that. I mean, Three Waters is a great example. We had 3 years of building three waters from the Labour Greens perspective. National cuts it and then makes a healthy waters plan that's basically the same. We just wasted 3 years and billions of dollars. Just build the pipes. So we are unashamedly pitching ourselves as the new kingmaker. We don't think that New Zealand First is a good kingmaker. Their political strategy is basically to pit the left and the right against each other.
Some would argue that's very savvy politically. It works.
Oh, it's savvy politically, yeah, but it's not good for the country. So the kind of things that we would bring to a coalition agreement would be right, you want our 6-7% votes. National Labour, you both have to agree to an intergenerational infrastructure plan that's going to last 30 years. You have to sit down and agree to a fiscal runway so that we don't have a superannuation fiscal cliff. You have to agree to a climate adaptation plan. That's the price that we'll bring to a coalition table. We'll be a kingmaker that accelerates progress by bringing National and Labour closer together, as opposed to Winston and New Zealand First, who his political play is to separate Labour and National and play them off against each other. That is just taking us absolutely nowhere. And that actually gives us means that people throw a lot of shade at us, because anyone on the left is like, I can't vote for you because you might work with the right. And anyone on the right says, I can't vote for you because you might work on the left. We're like, no, dude, no. We have to have a force in our political system that creates some long-term stability. That's fundamentally what we need now. And so we've already been asked this question like a dozen times, who are you going to work with? And every time the answer is we will see, because we haven't got a preference. We genuinely don't. Anyone on the left says that we're like neoliberal ACT 2.0, and everyone on the right says that we're the Greens 2.0. So we haven't got this ideological sort of anchor that puts us anywhere, and that gives us flexibility. And right now, New Zealand needs flexibility, and we need a long-term strategy, and that's us.
So you're ideologically agnostic.
We're ideologically agnostic, but we are religious about the evidence.
Yeah, right. Okay. I like that. I can buy that. It's a really interesting time at the moment. There was a great opinion piece I read from a guy called Fenton Hazelwood from West Ag Trading, and I'm going to get him on the show, but it's in relation to the Waddies and now McCain's, and what that's going to do to the growers, the veggie growers. It is not great, and the way that he outlines it is pretty much about as accurate a summary as I've ever read. He's basically calling it system failure, really. New Zealand's in a really interesting spot at the moment. Globally, we're still pretty highly regarded. So from people I've spoken to, Daniel, that have been overseas in recent months at different ag events, still really well regarded on the international stage. But this is starting to become, you can start to see the signs that, we're on a bit of a knife edge here. It's going to go one way or another, not with just agriculture, but a lot of things. But without strong agriculture in this country, God, where the hell else do we make our money,
That's a really good assessment of the situation. Like we use this term system change a lot. And I know some people's eyes sort of glaze over a little bit when we talk about it, but like that is the core problem. Like we've relied on these systems for like 30 odd years. When we started, they were awesome. Like a good example, and this is not to say that I don't like it, but a good example is the Commodity Levies Act, right? Like this is arguably the single most important piece of legislation in the agricultural sector. Set up the levy body, set up a whole organizational structure, set everything up. It was signed in 1990. It was 6 months after the Berlin Wall fell down. I'm not saying it's a bad piece of legislation, but I am saying that the world has changed a bit since then. So that's just one. I mean, for the last 20 years, basically our entire economy has been built on milk powder and housing price inflation. For a while, that was a really, really good strategy and it worked really well. But after time, if you don't change a system, it atrophies and it calcifies and it stagnates and you start getting really, really weird, bad results. Superannuation's another one. I'm not against the pension. It's awesome. We have to have a life of dignity for our old people. But if we don't change our superannuation and pension systems, you end up bankrupting the country. And so we've got these multiple dysfunctional systems that we've built a country on top of, and we can't seem to actually get under the house and redo the foundations. These are foundational systems. And our political system is incapable, for whatever reason, of getting under the house and rebuilding those systems. And until we vote in a political force that actually says, I'll get under the house with all the spiders and the overalls on, and we'll do the hard, gnarly work, we're just not going to get anywhere. And unfortunately, the same thing is happening in ag. Specifically to the Waddies closures, what we're seeing is sort of a deindustrialization of the food system and a particularly a lack of sort of domestic ownership as well. This was sort of, all of the processor sales to overseas owners as well. That's because we didn't even have really a system or a food security or a food strategy in place before. we've kind of let the market decide. And, I'm all for free market and stuff. That's great. And, it generally is the most efficient way to shift resources around. But if the free market response to our stagnation is to lose control of our assets, to lose critical pieces of infrastructure that our farmers and our eaters and our business people require in order to have a supply chain that works, then I'm sorry, that's not a good system. And so it's not about whether you need big government or small government. You need active government. And, it's not just because I've come from the food and fiber sector, but I reckon food's actually quite important. And I think that we actually do need to take a more active role in ensuring that we have secure food supplies, we have secure input systems, so we're not reliant on Middle East fertilizer. I mean, I shudder to think of what the next FERT bill is going to look like, given all the stuff that's straight with moves. We need, an energy system that isn't reliant on, a 30K stretch of ocean staying open in the Middle East. These are fundamental things that we've just kicked the can on down the road again and again and again. And when something like a Waddies factory closes, that is a symbol that we've run out of road to kick the can. And we now actually have to do the hard work.
So 2 things on that, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I think that this paragraph from the piece that I was talking to you about earlier would sum that up. The writer says, for too long, across governments of different stripes, New Zealand's drifted down a path where domestic productive capability has been treated as secondary to global efficiency, imported supply, and short-term commercial logic. That path comes at a cost. I think that's a good summary of kind of what you're talking about, eh? It's pretty good.
Spot on. Yep, for sure. I think it's really important when we talk about this that we don't get into a position of saying it is either like domestic food security or export-led production. Those 2 things are not in competition. They can absolutely coexist. And in fact, one supports the other. To go back to my earlier point, explain to me how we become the exporters of health and nutrition when we are the 3rd most obese country in the OECD and 20% of our kids live in food insecurity. Like, it takes one New York Times article to be like, don't buy New Zealand steak, they are not healthy. And you've blown all of that investment. There's like a reason why people eat Mediterranean food, because people in the Mediterranean, it's like the blue zone where they're so super healthy and it's just the lifestyle makes it work. So without, a concerted effort to ensure things like domestic health, domestic food security, strong supply chains, well-rewarded farmers, and I think crucially, a pathway for young farmers is massively important. You can't innovate without, no offense, you can't innovate without young people, because young people have new ideas and fresh energy. It's simple as that. A lot of old people can innovate as well. Don't let me just sorry, my politician handbrake there. I've got to work that muscle. Regulation. We actually need systems to ensure that these things become priorities. And Fenton's absolutely right. We have left it up to the vagaries of a free market, which 9 times out of 10 works, but doesn't always deliver the things you need it to deliver. And that goes back to what I was saying before, that we believe in free markets, but they have to be designed for the outcomes that you want. And the outcomes that we want are domestic food security and health, and we're not getting that.
The problem I see with an approach like that, and I don't disagree with it in terms of, as you say, fixing the foundations of the house, or the landscape that we're working in, is a lot of these things are politically unpalatable to a lot of the electorate. The sort of the long-term thinking that you're discussing, which can be the death knell of a lot of politics, shouldn't be, but it's just the way the electorate does have a short memory, as I think you alluded to earlier. So how do you go about trying to say, hey, listen, we're here for the long term. We need systematic change. We're the guys that are going to do it, but you just got to kind of bear with us, and there might be a few things that are unpalatable to start with.
Yeah, great point. So I think that's shifting. General manager's going to slap me over the wrist for this, but I'll bring up something that people do have some concerns with, a policy of ours, which is a land value tax. So that is a small tax on holding land every year. It's sort of balanced by a universal basic income, but we can ignore that for a moment. This basically says that we have for a long time built our economy on housing. And so like the common sense has been buy a house, hold on to it. It's going to shoot up in value. You'll make a stonk at the end. That's great if you own a home. But for the 40% of New Zealanders and increasing who don't own a home, it's locked them completely out of the security and like the safety and the stability you need that comes from home ownership. And also it's locked them out of a whole lot of wealth. It's also locked a whole lot of like broader money out of the system into housing. Housing is an unproductive asset. You shouldn't be putting your money in bricks and mortar and weatherboards. You should be putting your money into Halter and Sharesies and your KiwiSaver, because that money flows into businesses, which businesses can then use to invest and hire more people and build things. So from an individual perspective, housing has really, really worked for a lot of people. But from a broad macro societal perspective, it's absolutely stuffed us as an economy. Like it is absolutely one of the core pillars underneath the house that's failing. So our job as a system change party is then to propose something like a land value tax, which creates a disincentive on holding large amounts of property, particularly unproductive property. A lot of people are going to look at that and say, get stuffed, which is, I get it, I understand that. But then a lot of people are going to say, okay, I got a grandkid. If prices keep rising at the rate that they have the last couple of years, it's going to cost my kid $2 million to buy the average home in a major metropolitan centre. They're not going to be able to do that. They're going to go and move to Australia. And so you got a choice here as a person who would be set back by our policy. Are you going to ensure that the next generation have access to housing, or do you want to see more gains? And I can't answer that question for everyone, but what's important is that there is a political force that give them the option to vote for the next generation. Because currently we haven't got that. Capital gains tax by Labour, like a little tutu on your batch. I mean, it's just not going to fix 20 years of broken economics, right? There's one additional piece to this, and then I'll finish, is we don't need to win 50% of the vote. We only need to win 5%. And so it gives us leverage in any kind of negotiation room, right? So let's say we sit into a negotiation room, and let's say we decide to go into government with National. And we say, National, the price of our support is you start the process towards a land value tax. It's now very easy for Christopher Luxon to say, my hands are tied. Those whippersnappers over at Opportunity, they made me do it. Oh, sorry, Epsom and nice suburbs. I couldn't do it. I had to do it. So that's where MMP actually starts working for you really well. And that's the role that we want to play. It's weird. I don't know why I keep referring to Dad on the farm, but it's the role that we played with Dad on the farm. Was, Dad, I'm going to inherit this one day. Let's start putting in the hard yard changes now to make my life easier and your granddaughter's life easier. He wasn't on board with everything, but you keep pushing, and you keep being that positive influence that says system change is necessary and required. And eventually, you get to a middle ground where real progress happens. And I think that's possible at a national level too.
One other thing for you, I do appreciate your time. Interesting about late last year, and I forgot, I'm hazy on the details. Someone was speaking about or writing about, we've got agriculture and tourism, which are the big earners. And then someone was saying, listen, what's next? We've got to have something else, because what if, let's look at the way that the world is at the moment. Let's just say there's a global war, for example, right? Which isn't as ridiculous to say now as it was even maybe 2 months ago, right? Okay, so let's just lay that out. Let's just say that happens. So you've got this scenario where, tourism, let's say, is halved or becomes almost non-existent. And, we've got problems with supply chains and bits and pieces with our agriculture. So Worst case scenario, these two aren't earning as much as they have done and, done the heavy lifting. And people have raised the point as to what else can New Zealand offer? Because we've really pretty much got those two things, right? I mean, you can tell me if we've got other things, but I can't see them. So where else are we any good? What else could we earn some bucks off down the line? I'm talking, in a few decades, and these things don't pop up overnight.
Yeah, good question. I think there's still a lot of road left in ag.
I do too. I'm just painting a worst case scenario possibility, and we do have to prepare for what if the worst happened and we were cut off from the world. What happens if there's a nuclear bomb in the northern hemisphere, for example?
Mate. This becomes an entirely different conversation. This is not about what industries we build. This is about how do we survive? But that said, I did some work with a group last year who actually looked at this exact scenario. They're a catastrophic risk analysis group of academics, and we can get through that if we start planning now. And weirdly, there's a system. It's not to get off on like the nuclear bomb sort of off ramp, but there are ways that we can build a food system now that actually ensure that we are protected in that kind of event. Be things like ensuring that the peri-urban rings around our cities aren't just flash lifestyle blocks. They're actually really productive farms. Like that could be really, really smart. And then instead of sort of growing all our broccolis and pukekohe and Levin, we grow our broccolis and our basic staple foodstuffs around our cities for very, very short supply chains. And then we use those best soils to grow kiwi fruit, which sells at $12, a kg, as opposed to a broccoli, which sells at $4. So that's a really good example of smart system design that if the absolute worst were to happen, we're actually so much better off, and we're better off because we're just doing it. It doesn't need the catastrophe to pay for itself. Anyway, sorry, what was your initial question? I'm talking about the nuclear bomb.
I got a bit carried away there. No, but So it was sort of like, okay, what else can we offer?
Diversification. Yeah.
What else have we got? What else could we be good at?
Yeah. So there are a couple of avenues that we're really keen to go down. Some because they're just awesome, like space and aeronautics. We're actually so well situated geographically to be a space superpower. It sounds real weird that New Zealand could be a space superpower, but purely because of geography and a whole bunch of other reasons, that's a really good space for us to play in. Interestingly, while we are kind of behind the AI 8-ball, we actually have a bunch of sort of system settings that enable us to actually be a really interesting niche player in AI development, we believe, mainly because we've got a really strong and stable political system. Granted, it needs a lot of change, as I've mentioned. But there's basically going to be two sort of AI worlds that start developing. One would sort of be, kind of call it commodity AI. And then the second is sort of premium, high value, high trust AI. That second place kind of look like with food. We don't feed the world, but we create some of the best food in the world. We could actually make some of the best AI applications of the world that are high security, high privacy, high trust, high ethics. We actually have a lot of the foundations to play in that space. Creative industries, huge. South Korea has, like 15% of their GDP or some astronomical number comes out of creative industries. We're actually, the amount of movies and music that we pump out for a population of 5 million that goes global is off the charts. That's a really interesting space for us to play in. But to my earlier point, I don't think the road has run for ag, not in any stretch of the term. Like the world is desperate for another green revolution in farming. Like this one can't be like the old one where we're just like pumping nitrogen fertilizer and away we go. This one has to be different. It has to be based on nature positive farming systems that sequester carbon in the soil, retain moisture, and do it all for very, very low input requirements and costs. Heavily reliant on agri-tech, to like find those marginal gains and optimizations. Like what I'm describing to you is basically the New Zealand Agri Innovation System. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's our future. Our future is more halters. Our future is more hectares and these systems and platforms that enable really, really good food to be produced in harsher environments for less input costs, while also, developing, enhancing biodiversity and all that kind of good stuff as well. If we can
Yeah.
crack that nut, mate, we are there. But we can't do that if we're only spending 1.5% of our GDP on R&D. Like that's where it hasn't. You got to spend money to make money, and from a science and development system that is as underfunded and unloved as it is, expecting us to make that leap is not plausible.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, look, I think you're bang on, and I do totally agree with ag. I think ag's only going to go better, but we did. Yeah, there's a few things that need to be sorted out there. I actually don't mind your space one because there was I spoke to someone last year, and they were on the Mahia Peninsula, and Rocket Lab are launching off there, because they've got farmland and it's mutually advantageous. You're right, geographically, we're actually set up pretty good. Well, I mean, NASA does the balloon stuff over Central Otago here as well, the big clear skies and stuff. They send that up from time to time. So that's actually not that. That's actually realistic and feasible, I feel.
Big time. We might not be launching like the big missions to Mars, but for every mission to Mars that goes, you need like 100 small satellites delivering payloads for maintenance, supply. A lot of actual satellites go up from Mahi. The main reason is that we haven't got a huge shipping lane right off the coast of where we're launching. Like there's not a lot of shipping on the east coast of New Zealand. You think of some place like Cape Canaveral in Florida. The east coast of the US is one of the most heavily shipped routes in the globe. Including that with our political stability, good education systems, there's lots of young talent. If we can get to a point where we are generating a lot of cheap renewable energy, which we have a policy on, abundant energy, which is exactly that. Basically, just go all in on renewables and build the cheapest energy grid in the world. Then you're starting to really develop a business model that's attractive to the aeronautical companies of the world to come and base here. And there's no reason that we couldn't be one of the top three sort of launch sites in the world with all of the technical requirements and back office functions and logistics supply hubs that would be required to be that platform.
Fascinating. Yeah. Okay. God, there's so many other things we could talk about, but we've probably exhausted this one for now, at least anyway. So the upshot is Daniel Ebb is deputy leader of the Opportunity Party, and they're obviously chasing that magical 5% in the November election. It's been good to talk about all of this sort of stuff. Actually, it's been a lot of fun.
This is my jam. This is why I'm doing it, because I'm a massive nerd and this stuff gets me excited. I couldn't think of a better way to start my day. It's 9:00 and I'm like, right, let's get stuck in.
Let's get talking. Good stuff, man. Yeah. Well, we'll do this again. There's plenty of other stuff to talk about, I'm sure, in the lead up to November. But thank you. Appreciate your time as always, man.
I appreciate you having me on, Don. Good on you, mate.
Right, here's some good news. Water infrastructure at Mystery Creek near Hamilton's being upgraded with the help of a regional infrastructure fund loan of $1.35 million. It's been announced by Shane Jones and Mark Patterson. Joining us now, Richard Lindroos from the Fieldays, New Zealand National Fieldays Society, I think is the correct title, the chief executive at least anyway. Nice to have you back on, Richard. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Good morning. Good afternoon to everyone. It's been a busy day with the announcement, and we're really excited about that kind of certainty that we've got now with the investment by central government. It's part of an infrastructural plan for the venue as we make a fit-for-purpose, future-proof venue for hosting field days.
Yeah, it's this is infrastructure that's more than 50 years old, isn't it?
Yeah, National Fieldays Society moved to Mystery Creek about 56 years ago, and they built the venue from farmers' pipes. As simple as that.
Right.
So we have had 56 years of mend and fix across a large site. Probably the platform that people know when they come down the hill is about 40 hectares. It's been patchworked for years. So one of the first things I did when I came aboard as chief executive last year is just looked at our assets. If we want to be world class in terms of our delivery, which we are in terms of field days, we have to have a fit for purpose venue that accommodates and makes the customer and the executive experience world class. So there's 4 strands of infrastructure. The first one is water reticulation, means we can have a good water quality and flow, and we can flush those toilets. So that's the first one.
Yeah, that's not a bad one either, is it? To
Yeah,
make sure that that stuff's sorted out. Yeah,
well,
exactly. Well, I mean, the thing is, you're attracting what? I mean, 100,000+ visitors each time it's held over the 3 or 4 days.
yeah. So field days last year was over 110,000. We think this year will be a bumper year as well. We're nearly sold out of our sites. I think we're 98% today of sites sold. We're well ahead of any other measure in terms of sales. It shows that agribusiness is booming. This infrastructural plan is really important for Mystery Creek. So water was first. And next one, and it's very timely, this conversation, next one, which I spoke to in Parliament in October last year about, was energy resilience. So, the next step will be future-proofing the site with energy. And that's across making it a green site in terms of green infrastructure, solar, electricity. We need to do that. It's a small town that arrives here in June. It's in winter. We've got to heat and fuel the site. The third infrastructural plan is buildings, knocking down a few, putting some new ones up, and that's expensive. But that's again about developing a master plan for the campus, so we can again offer the exhibitor and all the crowds that come to field days and other events. We host a quality experience. And the fourth one of our infrastructural plan, by the way, it's not happening in 1 year; it's over a 15-year horizon. Is our footprint. So that's entry and exit in terms of roading network, landscaping, lighting, signage, that sort of stuff, wayfinder signage. So I think your listeners will be really pleased to hear that we have a plan and we're following it. I'm just trying to convince the central government to support us on that journey, which we have today with the announcement. And if we do that, we'll see not only 110,000 people coming to the event ongoing, but also we'll attract tens of thousands of international visitors, because that's while we have the show that brings those people, we need to have the facilities to do that.
Yeah, and it's not to put too fine a point on it. She's worth a few bob to the economy, isn't
Yeah.
it? Not just locally around Waikato, but overall to
Well,
everything.
it's actually, it's interesting because field days is mega on scale at all levels. And if you look, we have MB and Waikato University assesses that what we hear what events bring to regions economic impact. We bring every year over 500 million. I'll say that again, every year. And last year was 528 million. And to the Waikato economy, it was on that 528, 213 million was just for Waikato. So we attract, I think it's 53, 54% of people from outside the Waikato coming in to Mystery Creek for the 4-day event. And, we're increasing our international delegations who come here to trade. It's not the public-facing event that people see that they come for. They come to do business with our government. They come to do business with our businesses. And that's exciting because it is that agribusiness platform for us. And probably the significance of it is it's the only event in New Zealand that Parliament has a recess for. They take the week off for field days. Now, you'll hear about this in Australia when they take the race stops the nation for the Melbourne Cup. Parliament stops for field days because, as you rightly said, it is so important where agribusiness pays the rent and more in New Zealand. And we're on a bit of a win at the moment. So we've got to put some in the bank and keep going.
Yeah, all really good points. The other thing as well, just to step outside ag just for a minute, it's about 100 other events hosted at Mystery Creek during
Yeah,
the
that's,
year as well.
yeah,
Yeah, and also it is a critical bit of infrastructure for civil defence in Waikato as well. So, I mean, not just field days, but all round, it would be all the things that you've outlined there. They have benefits clearly for field days as a starting point, but for much larger
yeah.
implications as well.
It's an interesting point you make. People know us for field days. I mean, the point is that the society owns the event and the venue. That's very rare in terms of the mega event space. But the civil defence emergency side is really important for the Upper North Island. So if we have something of scale in the North Island, this is a working hospital. It's a logistics hub. It acts as a mortuary as well. So listeners will be pleased to hear the government have planned for this. Hence why water reticulation is quite important. You need water supply. We can camp 8,000 people here with power and water, and it's a really good thing to know that the government have those plans. It's under the Ministry of Mark Mitchell. Again, that investment in us, it's not. We're not funding staff or marketing or comms. We are funding infrastructure through this infrastructure fund. And so I just think it's a really positive move for New Zealand and a great announcement for Mystery Creek, this water reticulation investment by the central government today.
Yeah, so the work involves replacing the existing reticulated water network and installing one 600,000 litre water tank. It's a big bit of kit.
Yeah, it's a big swimming pool, isn't it? I mean, it's a big bit of kit. You do it, one and done, really, isn't it? You just got to do it right. So society is invested, the government invested. We're really pleased with it, and now I'm on to my next project, energy resilience, and the timing couldn't be better. So I'm excited about what we can do there, for this site and also for rural communities. We can be the poster boy for what we can do.
Yeah, until the electrification, really takes hold, though, we're dealing with, as you say, it's very timely. We're dealing with an issue now that let's hope it's resolved soon and things can go back to some sort of normalcy. If not, though, worst case scenario, this bloody thing's still going on over the other side of the world, and those fuel prices are still an issue, and the availability of it here in New Zealand. If that's still floating around come June, Richard, it's going to put a lot of pressure on exhibitors, people attending, all sorts of things, isn't it, really?
Yeah. To be honest with you, we haven't had any impact yet in terms of exhibitors exiting and I think Field Days is a pretty unique event. We currently last year we moved 14,500 people by public transport. We encourage the Field Days roadie, the carpooling. We're already working well in this space. So I would say we'd have more investment and more proactive communications about getting people to Field Days. I mean, if we go to stage 4 of the government plan, forget about Field Days, you can forget about a lot of things. So I think but we think we can work with all the stages with government. We're planning already for it, but we're not going to scaremonger. We have enough time. Currently, there's an issue about price. It's when it becomes an issue of supply that's when we worry. Price is going to be a blimp over many months. It won't. Yeah, but look, most major events we've all been through COVID. We've hopefully learned from those experiences. We need to be calm and considered, and we will take government advice on that. But as I just highlighted, the Fields Days event does move a lot of people by PT, public transport, and I think that will increase this year. And if you're turning up to Field Days with one person in the car, you probably need to get some friends.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, never travelled there alone. That's a good point. Okay. So, what are you hearing with your dealings? I don't know how much you want to divulge or not, but in terms of the supply, I think you're right. Price will fluctuate.
Well,
supply. What are you hearing?
Well, yesterday I was in Parliament with Minister Jones, Foreign Minister Winston Peters, some of the ministers. This was a conversation we had, and I can pleased to report that they were very calm and body language gives away a lot. They were okay and things. But look, I mean, I'm not diminishing the seriousness of the case. But I think we have a very proactive government at the moment. And so it is a bit of wait and see. It was interesting yesterday, the announcements that they extended our fuel supply in terms of what it was before. So they're obviously working and understand that. But probably the point for me, we can look at the now, but this is a wake-up call for New Zealand in terms of our energy resilience. I think we've done very well with our renewables. It's impressive, and the world is envious of that. But in terms of imports of products, might fast-track some of these large-scale projects in terms of electrification and other uses of energy sources. And, most of the usage is in agribusiness, as we know. So we had to take some ownership from that. But, the government is the leader of that. And I think whatever party's in power, and at the end of the year, that's something that's not going to go away.
Interesting. Well, Mike Casey will be delighted to hear you say that, Richard.
Mike, absolutely. We have, a strong sustainability presence in terms of energy use at Field Days, in terms of people exhibiting. We have we actually have a proactive partner in our alliance provider, YPAR Networks, who ironically we've started a PhD project on energy resilience at Mystery Creek through support through the Ministry of Science. So, I don't know if we've got the crystal ball, but we've read that well. And that's about showcasing how you can be energy resilient on farm and in rural communities. And we're working with YPAR Networks now on that already.
Good. Excellent. Well, we'll catch up closer to the event. Nice to check in with you now, though. Some good news. And yeah, stage one of that 4-stage project, as you say. So 70-odd days to go. We'll catch up with about 20 or 30 to go and see where we are, eh?
Yeah, hey, appreciate it. Really good news from government. This is an infrastructure investment story. So delighted that the regions are benefiting.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you feel so inclined, please like, comment, and subscribe. We have new episodes for you every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. See you next time.